Republicans are straight up reeling because voters, including in often more conservative-leaning states, are rejecting this version, today's version of the Republican Party, as measurably unpopular, as something that these voters oppose, and they oppose the policies. And I'm not talking about opinion. I'm not talking about speculation or polling. I'm just reporting for you on what we're learning from the vote this week and the party that is now dealing with what is clearly a distressed MAGA brand. And that fed the weeks of chaos in replacing a speaker. It shows the candidates running for office right now against the very creator of MAGA, Trump, while he skipped this debate they did last night. And they were clearly still split over how to challenge him and each other against the backdrop of these new losses. All of it on display at the new debate.
I'm sick of Republicans losing. In Florida, we've become a party of losers at the end of the day.
You're just
the easy answer, do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
They're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
We have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023.
Now, that's a lot of Republicans listening to those voices, and it is true. Republicans keep losing. You heard the list there. I won't repeat it. If you go back to 2016, more voters actually went against Donald Trump as well. It was just the Electoral College that got him into the White House. So numerically, this keeps happening. Those candidates that you saw there are starting to at least admit some of the losses as a fact. Now, remember that. We will return to that point tonight. But right now, as we begin the newscast, I want to make sure to be clear that even against that backdrop, some of the Republicans are trying to sell a version of what is this losing Trumpism in their current campaigns. While the fact is that voters in Ohio, Kentucky, and Virginia bucked MAGA. They voted to ensure abortion access in Ohio. They reelected a Democrat in a very deep red Kentucky. Democrats got both houses of Virginia legislature in that off-year election held this week. And much of this Democratic turnout is a backlash to MAGA in general and Republican abortion plans specifically. And the elections and then this often tense debate last night shows something that I want to reflect on with you tonight. That's why it's our top story. And depending on how you look at it, you may find some of it positive. This debate, I think, shows how the future is here now. And for Republicans, that means dealing with the facts of their political future against these kind of consistent, measurable losses, that if you do X, Y will happen in response. And if you give people X very unpopular message over and over about the very unpopular thing you want to do, then Y is the response. They will reject it repeatedly, and that means they either continue down the Trump path, rally around their post-indicted, possibly soon-to-be convicted political figure as their nominee, or Republicans might hear out these last pitches for a Trump alternative, which included some criticism.
Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance.
I don't think he's the right president now. I think that he put us $8 trillion in debt.
We need a president and a candidate who will actually help our base solidify and attract independent voters into our party.
Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country.
That was some of the Trump criticism that was pushed by these remaining candidates last night. Chris Christie, the only one that specifically mentioned the obvious legal problems and peril, which are both substantive, do you want someone with those problems, and political, because, well, there may be voters in Ohio and other places that just turn on Republicans that won't actually, in the end, embrace a rerun of Donald Trump, but this time convicted. The electorate knows about his 4 indictments, and the Republican primary electorate isn't saying that, as you see here, that's having them rush to other candidates. But the general electorate could be a very different story. And the debate last night was not the most important debate in the world. There's about 2 months until Republicans start voting. There would need to be a lot that would have to go down to change those fundamentals. In fact, that lower stakes is something that after we all watched the debate, and this is one of those nights where there's no special access, right? We weren't in the debate hall, and if you were there, it would just be a little bit louder. Wherever you may have watched part of it at home on television or looked at phone alerts, we all kind of sat through it. Then we reassembled here on our newsroom desk, and I'll tell you, the lower stakes last night was something we did discuss in our coverage.
It's like watching a preseason football game. Everyone's making the motions of the thing without the stakes of the thing.
Here's my notes.
In that universe, you can't afford to be an anti-Trump person.
Correct.
Because you'll never have another day of success in Republican politics.
These 5 voices matter a lot less than the voices of so many voters who rejected everything that their party's offering yesterday.
The Republican primary voters have weighed in, and they're not into any of these people.
And that's why at times it did feel like 5 people trying to get the attention of a bunch of other people who either aren't with the Republican Party right now, those are the elections, or the MAGA base who are with Donald Trump. So that pettiness, though, which has been really on display a lot, is clearly a contrast to voters' real lives and how they see through it. How liberty and freedom are real concerns for women and people around the nation, not just talking points with that abortion backlash. It's also bipartisan. New York Times has a report that notes this is the issue that persuades the most Republicans to vote Democratic. So there are real stakes even against a kind of petty, messy process. There are things that can matter here. And this is what I told you I wanted to return to tonight as we kind of make sense of what's happening here. I want you to notice how some of the candidates didn't double down against these voters' positions this week and for the past months about abortion. Some tried to do a pivot, while others continued with the usual rhetoric.
Let's find consensus. We don't need to divide America over this issue anymore.
We're better off when everybody counts. We're better off when we can promote a culture of life.
I trust the people of this country, state by state, to make the call for themselves.
Sexual responsibility for men.
I'm 100% pro-life. I have had 100% pro-life voting record. I would certainly, as President of the United States, have a 15-week national limit.
So there was a spread of views there on this very fundamental issue, but I would observe, if we are just looking at objectively what's happening, there was also movement. Now, you have to test whether that movement is real or some kind of PR political scam. James Carville argued this week that Republicans lie so much about abortion that when they move, it doesn't matter. But here's the point I'm making for you tonight. That movement is towards where the country is. It is towards the pro-choice side. It is towards the side that says the Supreme Court can't just come along and reverse 50 years of precedent, and Republicans can't just lie about it and get away with it. That movement shows this party, some of its candidates, are actually listening to all of the opposition. And that, while you might say low bar, is a shift from the denialism that has greeted their past losses, led by Donald Trump, who literally denies elections to the point of potentially a criminal level. The courts will decide. But remember, states were counting in 2020, and Trump was already lying about his loss, claiming he won, election denialism. Even when the Republicans had further problems after he left office, the red wave that fizzled, there was a lot of blame. There was talk about Trump. There was a lot less acceptance of the idea that against all kinds of other precedent and trends, the voters rejected that Trump MAGA version of Republicans. Let me tell you something else. In all fairness, I'm not talking about which party you prefer. I'm talking about how politics works. It is, when it functions, a competition to get your set of ideas somewhere in a palatable place for the voters. And then if you're close enough, the other things can make a difference, like whether you're charismatic or you have good new ideas or you connect. Some politicians are more or less charismatic. But if your core option is so out of step with the voters, as Vivek himself was just saying when he listed off all those losing years, well, you won't get near being able to win. And the fact that the Trump wing of the party has embraced election denialism has actually hurt the party's ability to listen and get anywhere near competitive. So if you're watching this and thinking you want a healthy democracy, that's a bad thing. If you're watching this and thinking you just want Republicans to keep losing elections, well, then you might hope they keep making this mistake, because the Republican Party, under Trump's election denialism, has been lying to itself. And that doesn't work, which brings us to an iconic and true lesson from Scarface.
Lesson number 2, don't get high on your own supply.
That's right. Lesson number 2, don't get high on your own supply, because not everybody follows the rules.
don't get high on your own supply. You could be dealing, you could be lying, you could be giving it to others, but when you start dealing to yourself, when you and your own team are getting high, losing your sense of reality, losing your sobriety politically and otherwise, well, you really played yourself. Trump pushed the party into spending years high on its own supply, demanding it, making it a kind of a litmus test that future candidates running in unrelated elections had to get high on his supply and lie and pretend that he didn't even lose the race he lost. Is that changing? I mean, that's what we're going to get into tonight, because this actually could be an important thing. And there are those on the stage last night and in the, shall we call it, the product distribution center of this Scarface part of the party, who are starting to worry that they have been too high on a very bad supply for too long.
Here we are, 2 years after the Dobbs decision, and the Republicans have no idea how to message it.
The issue of abortion is one that Republicans either have to get straight on or they're going to lose on it.
As we have seen, once again, the predominant issue across the board was abortion. People don't want restrictions on it.
Again, it's time to recognize that the suburbs are increasingly left-leaning on the cultural issues. Plus, the Democrats are able to outraise, outspend, and better frame these issues than Republicans.
Those are folks standing up and saying, hey, this has been a narrative, a lie, a high claim about a bunch of stuff, from Donald Trump's losses to other policy issues, with a bunch of people getting high together and telling themselves stories that aren't true, that are hurting themselves. So you're starting to see these warnings come out against the backdrop of the debate, with actual candidates in the Republican Party reminding Republican voters what they did was unpopular. They're the party of, quote, losers, their words, and it's time for a change.